show, our guest is Tarra Mitchell, who is on the cusp of debuting her first and very exciting new book, The Yoga of Leadership. Give us a description of the very interesting career you had before you got to this point of writing this awesome book.
Well, thank you. Yes, it was interesting. I've had a good run at it so far, and I'd like to think I'm young, and it's not over. That's for sure.
You are definitely very young, and it's not over.
So, yeah. So I went to undergraduate school at Penn State, and I found myself working in D.C. after graduation. I worked for a firm that had a government contract to process data for the commissary system for consumer product goods companies, and ended up being an account manager there, where I had a lot of responsibility. I had to learn how to present to Fortune 500 senior brand managers, and at one point even the vice president of a Fortune 500 company in a gigantic boardroom, and I was like 24. So that was a little nerve-wracking, but great experience.
So you've paid your dues.
Yeah, in one way or another, I think
you know
I've had
all
a lot of experiences.
about being nervous.
Yes, I understand nervousness a lot, and I'm always nervous about speaking in front of people. And then I went to business school.
Right.
I have an international MBA, got that in South Carolina, which at the time was only one of a handful of international business MBAs in the country. They've had a program for 40 years, and so part of that program was an internship. So I worked for Deutsche Bank in Germany. I was in the German track, and I was lucky because I worked for a man called Klaus Martini, who eventually became the global chief investment officer for Deutsche Bank itself, which was the biggest bank when I was there, biggest bank in the world when I worked for them. And when I was working there, it was also the ruble collapse, so it was the Russian financial crisis had started, and so that was just a really interesting time to be there.
Right.
And Germany was just about to convert from the Deutschmark to the euro, and it was also, we were preparing for that, so it was a great experience overall.
Wow.
Then I graduated and made my way to Manhattan, to New York City, where I worked for as a management consultant in the financial services sector. And there I had clients like JP Morgan was a longer term client of mine. And eventually I moved to Hartford, Connecticut to be closer to my fiance, as I guess you do. And so I was lucky at the time of my move because our building was adjacent the World Trade Center, and I left only 3 months before 9/11. And so that was a pretty lucky series of events. And then I found another job in the Hartford area with what I call a diamond in the rough kind of company called Landmark Partners. They do private equity, venture capital, and real estate investing. A leader in their field. And I worked for them for quite a while. I was in the marketing and investor relations track. I had to raise capital, and in time I was then directing these large capital raising events, and yes, upwards of $1 billion at that time. So I had the opportunity to travel a lot for that job, including Asia, Korea, Japan, Hong Kong. So
Europe
I learned a lot, and this broadened my perspective.
And you were traveling through Europe as well.
Traveled through Europe for business school, and I traveled through Europe for the company that I started, subsequent Landmark.
Oh, after that, okay.
So after a while of working for Landmark, I started to get a lot of incoming calls from recruiters for the next step up. And I mean, a lot of them, I think the market was pretty hot. And so I started thinking, well, what's next? What should I do next? And I decided that I wanted to try my hand at being an entrepreneur and starting my own investment fund. And I was really eager about starting my own culture. And so I found some partners, and we created a strategy that was investing in a sustainable clean energy investments, which was something I was drawn to. And we went out and set out to try to raise a fund. We had some success at nearly finding an anchor investor, and we're ready to start buttoning down that anchor when September of 2008 happened. And that was the global financial crisis, of course. And so we eventually lost our anchor investor because everyone's portfolios was hit. And so after about 5 months of trying to get the fund off the ground, I decided to call it quits, and that was early '09. And I just happened throughout all of that fundraising frenzy to get pregnant, so I had my son on the heels of it.
Well, you're not busy at all. Yeah,
no, not busy at all. Yeah. And so he's the most traveled baby in utero ever.
Billion-dollar fund, creating life, that's all
creating
good.
life, yeah.
Sounds like it's enough work for about 3 or 4 people.
No.
That's a lot of business experience.
A lot of workaholic in me.